We're deserted here this evening.
Yeah.
Wow.
Do
Do we have enough people to vote? Yeah, I guess
stellar
we do.
crowd here. Yeah. Okay, this is the, grab that document there.
This here?
Yeah, that's what you just gave me.
Yeah.
Put it down.
Yeah, right.
Okay, this is the monthly meeting of the Woodbridge Board of Finance for it's Thursday, December 15th. And before we get started, I guess, you know, doing this as long as I've done it, you think you've experienced everything, but I've never experienced losing a member of the Board of Finance, as we've unfortunately lost our beloved colleague, David King. I mean, there is no finer person I've ever known than David King. He was a very valued member of this committee, and he's struggled the last couple of years with his illness, but he made a couple of meetings, which was meant a lot to all of us. It was good seeing him, and he'll be missed. Not as a member of the Board of Finance, just as a human. He was just as good a person as you could ever want to know. And I read some tributes from some of his students, and they loved him. All his students loved him, and I could imagine he must have been a wonderful professor. I spoke to his wife yesterday, and she's doing well. And she told me that David really did enjoy serving on the Board of Finance, and I told her, and we absolutely loved having him there. And I told her a funny story. I said, you know, we used to kid him because Andy Esposito used to bring pastry to all the meetings, and David not only would eat the pastry, but he wanted to understand how it was made and how to pronounce the names, and he became proficient. I said he became proficient. I mean, he had those names down pat. I said so.
She said, and she told me, she said that you know, he would bring her home a taste. She got the taste.
Yeah.
He would start off bringing her one home. By the time I got home, he said she was lucky she got the taste. One of these days I have to remember I'll bring home some at the house for her.
Before I ask for a moment of silence, would anybody like to add anything?
Sure. I did actually go to the memorial service on Sunday, and it was really beautiful to hear all the stories from family, friends, colleagues, and students. And, you know, we tend to just see one or two dimensions of people when we work with them, and you got really an opportunity to kind of see how wonderful a person he was. He had just a terrific mind. He was so kind-hearted, and we've really lost someone who contributed to anything he decided he wanted to work on. He made a positive contribution. And whether it was New Haven Legal Assistance, Quinnipiac Law School, all the boards and commissions he served on in town, and we will miss him greatly.
With that, I just ask for a moment of silence. Thank you. Okay, public comments. I see no one here. Tony?
Our financial report through the end of the November is a $5.2 million projected fund balance, which is just shy of 10.5% of our annual projected expenses for the year. A couple things to bring to your attention. First, we sold some surplus golf equipment at an auction, and we received $70,300 in a variety of pieces of equipment.
It's terrific.
And so it was quite an experience. We put out a lot of advertisement for it, and legal ad and website and all kinds of reached out to golf superintendents in the area, and we kept about 5 or 6 pieces that we needed to wrap up the year, and sold the rest. So there's still other pieces to sell and other equipment to sell, but I thought I'd report that. It was an auction, and we combined it with Orange and Bethany. Had also equipment there. It was quite an experience, wasn't it? With an auctioneer, and there had to be 100 people there.
Yeah.
At least 100 people there.
That's fabulous.
And they
Did
were-
ours last.
They did ours last, yeah.
And the majority of the people were like
We're
waiting
there
for all the
for
golf
that.
stuff.
Yeah, and there were golf courses all over the state that were there to bid on the stuff. It was quite a good experience.
That's great.
Yeah, so that was a big item. The rest were repeats from the prior month. So as we wrap up the first 6 months, we've just settled all of our wage issues in terms of the contract, so I'll have a better idea next month of exactly where we stand with our contingency and our wage retroactive payments and that sort of thing. So should be a more complete report next month.
Any questions for Tony? Tony, the status of the 16 audit?
I have a final draft in my office, and I'm just going through that, making sure all the numbers tie out. I have to finish up the transmittal letter, which is the letter that I do to give an overview of the audit. And we're hoping to have it printed mid next week and send up to the state.
Good.
There are no audit findings this year.
Nor are there any here, Tony. Other than the fact that it's a good audit.
Right.
Anything else? No, we got the Woodbridge Board of Ed, but I'm sure you're going to talk about that, Sandy.
I am.
Yep. No, I'm all set.
Okay. Funding requests. I believe we have 2. Okay. The first is 161703. It's from our contingency in the amount of $22,000 for the it's for the library, right?
Most of it was for the
We
library.
talked
Brad
about-
spoke about it at the capital budget
Yeah.
hearing. That's what that's for.
And do we want to do it? Well, let me maybe put it on the table and we'll talk about it. I'll move acceptance of request for funding 1617-03 in the amount of $22,000.
Second.
Okay. Do we want to look at the library fund, or would we just rather take it out of contingency?
I would say take this out of contingency until we figure out where we are with the project as a whole.
Okay. Because we heard about that.
Right. That's what I would use the library
More to
fund for.
come. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So, I mean, I got the impression from, Brad talking that he did most of the work. So
He coordinated a lot of it, but had to have
outside people.
outside people come in and do the work. But he coordinated a lot of the activity, and helped worked to get it fixed. And John AKF was helpful in identifying a lot of the issues for us.
Mm-hmm.
So this is some of this was the some of the issues that they had said we needed to fix in order to start the process of identifying the humidity problem at the library. There were a lot of mechanical issues that had to be repaired,
Okay.
and that's where that is. That's what that's for.
Any other questions? Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Next is the engineering study on the HVAC system. So I'll move acceptance of request for funding 1617-04, the amount of $25,000.
Second.
That would be possible to take this one out.
You could. I mean, it's up to you.
I hate to pop
You could.
$47,000 out.
Yeah, you
We've
could.
got so much money in that, and
Sure.
we never use it. I mean,
This you could.
Yeah, I would. So what would we have to do? Not approve this? And
Right, and then we'd send it to the investment committee
yeah,
when they meet.
it's up to you guys. I mean,
It's fine with me.
47,000 that's a chunk, in one.
No, if they have the money.
Oh, they've got
Yeah.
they've got
It's
a
about
lot of money.
280,000.
So we should use it.
Right, it's for the library. I mean, this is going to be a major project, so
So,
I'm sure. Yeah.
This is part of a major project for the library, so I think this is a good idea.
All right, so then we'll just vote it down. So
Yep.
we have a motion, we have a second. Any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
In favor of?
No.
In favor of moving.
No, in favor of taking it out of contingency.
Oh, no.
No. Okay, all those opposed? Okay, so it fails.
Okay,
And then
we'll put it on the agenda for the next investment committee.
Right.
And when is that?
February. Yeah.
Okay. I just think it's
But
important for us to.
If we know that this is something that that's going to move forward in the investment committee, and you all think it's a good idea, we can start the process
Yeah.
of putting the RFP together and
That would
do
be
all
great.
that work,
Good.
knowing that it'll be something that will be funded when we get the price
They're talking about doing the work,
over the summer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
although if we could push it up, obviously. Okay. All right, next is review and adopt revised fund balance policy. This is what we had talked about.
Isn't there a third The airpack lease?
Oh, that's
That's
it.
a lease.
That's the lease
Oh,
approval.
that, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Not a-
That's in
Okay.
Yeah, that's number 6.
Okay.
So, at the, this was handed out at, I think it was at the budget forum?
Yeah,
right?
yep.
And so, I didn't receive any comments from any of the selectmen
Yep.
about this. So that was sort of what was discussed, or any recommendations for changes or adjustments. So, I went through and put together this fund balance policy. I did look at several other area towns, and it ranges really from some towns that don't have a fund balance policy. Some towns have a range, like ours. Some have a minimum but no maximum. I sort of like the range because it sort of protects you from having too much in your fund balance. And that was the most common, but there were a lot of other forms, and this seemed to fit the type of Woodbridge, the community Woodbridges. So some things to show you is in terms of the following of the objectives for the policy. One big one is to preserve creditworthiness in town, which is a fund balance policy. Is always something that's looked at favorably. And it helps to provide resources in case there's an anticipated emergency. You have resources available for that. And it could also maintain sufficient funds for appropriations for unforeseen expenditures or revenue shortfalls. Or what we do here, maintain adequate reserves, provide mill rate relief in subsequent budget years, which is what we do each year. We have our $400,000 fund balance policy contribution. So those are some of the objectives that you would use a fund balance for. And these are the different types of fund balance that you have. I thought it was helpful to put that in there because there seems to be some confusion about what fund balance is and what it's for, and you know. So I want people to understand what it is and what the types are for. So when I talk about a fund balance, I generally talk about unassigned fund balance, which is the number I always give you. Okay, but if you take our unassigned and our assigned fund balance, then it's closer to $6 million. In other words, it's a lot more. And some things in assigned fund balance you could change. If we had a big problem, and you could say, listen, cancel all encumbrances, or go through a list of encumbrances and say, well, we really don't need this. We have an emergency. We don't need this. We don't need it. You can sort of go through. That's why there's some flexibility with assigned. And so, as you go up the list there, they get more restrictive and and how you can use them or not use them. So it's generally those two that you have flexibility with. Okay.
Any other comments?
No, I really like the way you put this together. And, I'll wait till I get to the Board of Ed, but I'd like to talk a little bit more about an assigned fund balance that maybe we could create.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Like in terms of how much you mean?
How much and the purpose
Right, okay.
related to special education, actually.
Right, okay.
Then I'll make a motion that we adopt the revised fund balance policy as presented.
Second.
Any further discussion?
Is this revised or this is new?
Well, we've had a fund balance policy that was very basic. Basically, all it said was between 7 and 14% of expenditures. It's basically that one part.
So
I added a lot of this extra
Yeah.
because of the discussion that's been generated throughout the last few years.
Yeah.
I thought it was helpful.
So newly revised.
Right.
It should say, should have a revision date.
Yeah, okay. Certainly, we'll
Yep.
put the revision
Just
date on the
revised.
bottom here.
Yep.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye. Nice job, Tony.
Thank
Next,
you.
review and adopt revised debt policy. And again, I think this is pretty straightforward.
This is very similar to the one we had.
Yep.
I just added here a disclosure and arbitrage compliance because there's a little extra attention paid to that lately, and that's making sure that we have obligations to disclose financial information to bondholders on an annual basis, which we do.
Any questions on this?
I just had one thought. On the first page, under purposes for which debt may be issued, the 4th bullet down, the town will issue debt to finance projects that have been identified. So I would like to say identified and approved.
Oh, okay, yep,
in-
that's good.
In the, okay,
Yep, absolutely.
thank you.
Anything else?
Because we identify a lot.
You're right.
in
That's
capital
a
plan. It's not
very good
necessarily
point.
all approved.
Yep.
Right, then I'll make a motion that we adopt the debt policy as presented.
Second?
Any further discussion?
And what?
All in favor?
Sure, you need to do something.
Aye.
You want me to do something? He raises
All in
his hand.
favor?
All in favor?
All right.
Next is the
I'm
airpack
waiting, I'm
lease.
waiting. Tony's saving me for the big guns.
Tony, you want to go out over this?
Certainly. The in the last budget, the fire department had requested funds for airpacks, and last was it June, Karen? Maybe. Forget if it's June or July. The this board transferred $110,143 from contingency to fund the first payment of the airpack purchase, which would be a lease. It was contemplated to be a lease at that time. So we've gotten the information from the fire department, the purchasing of the airpacks. That was approved by the Board of Selectmen in terms of the using a state contract to purchase that, Massachusetts state contract. And so I went to solicit pricing from several banks, and the lowest was J.P. Morgan Chase. 2.4% was the rate, and it's 3 payments. It says there of $101,803.38, totaling $305,410, which would be the 3-year cost. So we buy it up front, and then.
So we're approving
Lease.
the second and the third year.
So what
The
happens
first
is.
year's already done. The first
Yeah,
year-
so you're not approving the funding, you're approving the leasing of it.
Okay.
And then in the budget,
Okay.
you'll put in the 101,803 in the cap, to pay for the other 2 years.
But this is a lease purchase.
Correct.
Okay.
So in what happens is in the lease documents, they have a non-appropriations clause in there, so that should they not get approved in a budget process, then they, you don't owe the rest of the payment. They, of course, will probably take the airpacks back.
Back, sure.
Like they would take any other thing back.
Okay. So what I don't understand about the 3 annual payments, I mean, haven't we already paid that first 110,000?
Right. So but the lease is 3 payments. So you've paid we haven't paid the 110. We just transferred the funds. I actually haven't paid for the airpacks yet.
Okay.
The funds are there in a budget
Got it.
waiting to be paid. So essentially what will happen is the 101,803 will get paid out of the 110, leaving you $9,000 in change remaining in that fund, in that line item.
This is something like 60 airpacks, right?
Correct. It's and they're the ones that are expiring. They haven't sometime next year. The chief would know that.
Okay.
And there's 60 airpacks, right?
Okay, there is one thing at the last fire commission meeting, we discussed that they have some new recruits, a good number of new recruits, so they're gonna need airpacks. Is that something
I was just
covers?
this was sent. I just went
I
over
think
this.
60 is, they've got extras with 60.
Yeah, this is
Oh,
I think
have they?
I
extra.
think they have 60
Okay.
volunteers.
And actually, I just
Okay.
reviewed this with the chief a few days ago,
Okay,
and he didn't indicate
Yeah,
that.
I think
was
there's
extra.
extras in here.
okay.
Okay, so we're just approving the lease?
Correct.
Okay.
This the funding. It's the financing portion of the transaction. So what that does essentially is for next year's budget, you'll have a payment due of.
And then that'll be approved separately.
Right.
Well, I'll make a motion that we approve the lease of the airpacks for the fire department.
I'll second it. Oh.
Okay.
Hey, very good, Ian.
Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Approval of minutes. First is our regular monthly meeting on the 20th of October. I'll move acceptance of the minutes of October 20th as presented.
Second?
Any corrections, adjustments, etc.? Hearing none, all those in favor? Aye.
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 Okay. The second is it was a special meeting. What's the question now?
Joint meeting.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember about the yeah, okay, about the budget, right, okay. This was an October 26th meeting to discuss the budget process elements. I'll move acceptance of the minutes of October 26th as presented.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay. Meeting dates. Okay. I guess, Karen, you noticed that the meeting, the Thursday, September 21st is Rosh Hashanah. So we either have a choice of making it Monday or Thursday. I would just as soon say the following Thursday.
Okay, I would agree.
Keep it on a Thursday.
Yep.
Okay. Do we need to approve these? Okay, I'll move that we approve the proposed meeting dates for 2017 as presented.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye? Okay. First Selectmen's report, well, unless we can buzz down to Ellen and Grimaldi's. Nice to be First Selectman and
Raise one first.
have to host the party, and we're up here, the hardworking members of the Board of Finance are up here.
Oh, they're bringing us up some pizza.
Yeah.
Here.
Okay.
It's on its way up.
Liaison reports. I have been attending the Recreation Commission meetings, the last two anyway. The last one, which was December 5th, unfortunately, they didn't have a quorum because most of the Recreation Department was at the fire. They're firemen or related to the fire, so we met, and they're meeting, though, this coming Monday to follow up on that. But I also went to the meeting on October 24th, and they basically went through their capital budget, which we then heard here, and they also, something of interest, I guess the money that they raised from the road race, they donated to like, I think, $3,500 to the Warm Hearts
Food and Fuel Fund.
Food and Fuel
Yeah,
Fund,
right,
so,
yeah.
which is nice. So, that is that. Okay, so yeah, I'll be attending. I think they're going to go over their budget this coming
Yeah,
Monday.
That's right.
Okay. Now, this past Monday, I went to the Amity meeting. I'll get my paperwork on here, and a couple of things of interest. They're still running a surplus. Okay. As far as the budget number goes, if I can just get to that, it's quite interesting as far as the numbers.
What's the surplus?
Yeah, I've got it here. I just gotta find it. The more interesting part is what the budget is gonna, the effect the budget is gonna have on each town. Let's take a look at that. Give me a second. Just give me a second, it's right here somewhere. Right, okay, for the surplus they're anticipating is 740,000, of which we will get 220,000. I just gotta find the thing about the budget. Where did I put that?
We didn't feel good that night.
Give me a second. Yeah, well, you're absolutely right. And I could talk to you about another thing because I was more aggravated than anything, because there's, as I look for this, there's discussion about changing the finance committee. They want to, as Lenny Bell says, they want to declaw something that shouldn't be declawed. So there was enough between Sheila and me. There was enough opposition to that I guess they pushed it back to the committee to reconsider it, because on top of everything, Sheila brought with her a resolution that the Board of Selectmen, the Woodbridge Board of Selectmen, made on May 15th, 2003, acknowledging this finance committee. And this, if you all remember, I don't know if you were around then, Paul, this is how they got the budget passed.
Right.
So there was quite a bit of back and forth about why are you changing, as Sheila said and I repeated, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So I think they sense the reluctance of people to have them change this, so they shot it back to the committee, and I said,
To which-
leave it alone.
To which committee?
To the bylaws. Bylaw. I said, leave it alone. It's not. Well, we don't necessarily do. It's working. Leave it alone. You know, stop finicking with something you shouldn't have finicked with. So, okay. So here is the budget. They are projecting an increase of 2.86%. And with the enrollment shift and the numbers, Bethany's allocation will go down by $14,925. Woodbridge's will go up by $334,871. But not to worry, when you hear the number of Orange, that there's going to be a lot of screaming about. Orange's is going to go up $1,273,252. And I can assure you, Orange will not accept that. So we just have to sit back. We have to just sit back and let Orange. I told them. I told them at the meeting. I said, this is not going to happen. But like he said, it's a 2.86% increase. The same story. It's contractual obligations, benefits, et cetera, et cetera. So, but Orange will never.
But I think the issue is that year after year after year, they have had these huge surpluses.
Yep.
They're raising too much money to run the schools.
Yep.
And, yes, they're turning it back, but that's not what's supposed to happen.
No, I know.
And I think they need to be held accountable for that.
I agree. And I think I said that to them. But, actually, a surplus, on a $44 or $45 million budget, it's $600,000 is not a tremendous amount of money, especially when you have teachers retire and benefits and special ed. And so, I don't know. But those are their projected numbers. And like I said, I'm just going to sit back and let Orange do the legwork on it. So, and that was pretty much the big items we talked about. I just want to make sure there's nothing else. That's about it. Yep. So, more to come. Paul, do you have anything?
As I mentioned earlier, we have some new recruits, so that will impact our budget some. They'll need equipment and training and so on and so forth. So there will be some impact to our budget there. Other than that, the engines are going through maintenance, the regular stuff. Nothing
Earth-shattering?
Nothing earth-shattering.
Andrew?
Well, we had that special walkthrough, and everyone walked through the police
The
department
police, yes.
and looked at their facility. I did not make the meeting the following Tuesday because I was out of town,
Okay.
but I will make this one, the next one in January.
Sandy?
I did go to the Library Commission meeting this past Monday, and the Friends of the Library is actually doing very well. They've kind of come back from almost being gone, and they actually now have an Amazon account to sell books, and it's doing really well.
Oh, that's a good idea.
So they're just very creative, and they're getting lots and lots of books coming in. They really have a beautiful display area, and it's working quite well in terms of being able to give money back to the library. We did go over their proposed operating budget proposal, and it's an increase of $42,635, most of which is salary. Their increase is basically 0.6% for non-salary.
The thing I have to remember about the salaries is there's
Yeah.
3 years worth of increases in the budget.
Correct.
Because,
Right.
yeah.
We did go
You
over
did,
that.
okay.
It's like the money to pay for those 3 years is not something that you need to come up with,
Right.
but it has to be in your budget
Right,
for
right,
next year.
right.
So to help people understand
Yeah.
that. And there was a question that came up about the narratives that they submit with their budget package, that it really represents the activities up to that time. It's not really through the whole year, although it's presented as, you know, what they've done throughout the whole year.
Okay.
So is it possible for departments who want to kind of
To update
modify
it,
that
absolutely, yeah.
at the end of the year? So we should let...
What we do is we put out a preliminary budget, and then we put out an adopted budget.
Right.
The adopted budget will be after the year is finished, and they're more than welcome to change that.
Okay, so I think it would pay
Yeah.
to let department
Yeah,
heads
okay.
know that.
We can do that, yeah.
Yeah, they can submit them in after June 30th if they want to.
Yeah,
because
and we'll
then
remind them.
And we're in the
Okay.
process of doing the adopted budget
Okay.
document.
All right,
Yeah,
that's
okay.
great. And they did hire a part-time children's services assistant. And they do have some questions about the solar panel installation on the library roof, which I'm sure you've heard about. They've
I
had
have.
enough problems with their roof, and to kind of create more holes is not something that they're really looking forward to. But they'll talk to you about that if they
Okay.
want to pursue that.
Okay.
And then the Board of Ed Finance Committee also met that evening, and we went over their proposed budget. For this current year, they are looking at a $282,372 deficit, almost all related to special education needs. There are 2 additional placements that have come up. Even though they are looking for an additional intern, it's not going to offset the cost that we know we will experience. They are going to try to find savings, within their own budget, but they do predict a deficit of $66,700.
So
as of now.
the total deficit, the total shortfall in special is 282.
Yep.
But 66 is the total budget shortfall
Correct.
because of
that's what they're
savings in
saying.
other areas.
Correct.
Right. Okay.
Right.
That's good.
And one of the items that I would really like us to discuss, and it's not as if we need to decide it tonight, is that because there is such fluctuation, I mean, we've gone several years where we didn't have any extra special education costs. Should we actually consider creating one of your funds that you just, an assigned fund?
You could. Yeah. we could
For
do that.
special education, so that we still may have to find dollars elsewhere, but that we have some ways to actually fund what is something that you actually can't predict. And we've asked them not to estimate cases that they think might come, but they're not sure, with the reassurance that when the special education needs are there, we will, as the town, will meet those. So I don't know what the thought or sentiment is about that, but at some point I'd like to actually have a discussion about that, and to get your perspective,
Okay.
Tony, and if you think that makes sense.
Okay.
And again, it's not saying we're going to put hundreds of thousands of dollars away each year, but there's probably something that we can do to kind of help start that process, and maybe some suggestions about how to continue.
Each
that.
child, though, isn't our cost averaging about $100,000 plus per child?
It depends.
special ed?
It depends upon the child.
Depends on their needs.
Yeah, because it includes transportation in addition to tuition, and they get placed in different environments based
Depends on
on
what
what
they're-
their issue is. But what keeps happening is that they then have to include those placements in their next year's budget, and so that becomes a
Right.
source of increase for them. And programmatically, that doesn't really help the school. It's an increased expense that they need
Right.
to cover.
Right.
So I do think that until the state actually does something that makes this fairer, that we need to come up with some type of a
Unfortunately,
plan.
the state is not going to be in any position to do
Right.
anything to make
Oh,
anything
you make it
fair,
worse.
Correct.
you know.
So we should really think about this.
Okay.
In terms of their budget for next year, they are proposing to their board It's a 4.72% increase. This is with no new staff. It's about $650,000. It's special education. It's the technology piece that we asked them to put in their operating budget, and just current staff and the wage increases. There was one question, Tony, that did come up that I think warrants some investigation. There's $29,000 in there for a solar panel lease. And in addition to that, we're also paying electricity. And something just doesn't seem right about that. So there's an increase actually in the utility costs, some of which could have been anticipated because we're now air conditioning the school, which we didn't have before.
So the when they did this year's budget, they didn't put in the lease the
It's there.
funding of the solar. That's
Yeah,
my
it is.
understanding.
There's $29,000 in there for solar panel lease. That's why their utilities went up so high.
I mean, you mean for next year's budget?
Yeah, for
Yeah,
next year's
right.
budget, not this year.
And this year they didn't put anything.
Correct.
So what you have to do is compare it to 2 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
before they had the solar, to see.
Right, but what they're
Yeah.
questioning is not just the cost, but the fact that
The
if
solar-
we have a power purchase agreement,
Mhm.
okay, why are we paying the lease and the electricity?
You pay because the solar panels don't cover all of the electricity in the building. It just covers a piece. And then every April there's a it's an estimated amount until April, and then it's trued up to
Okay.
your bills.
All right. Well,
I can look into it.
I
with
think
Al,
that
yeah.
Al's going to actually
Yeah.
come to you
Yeah, okay.
and maybe dig a little bit deeper.
Sure, yeah.
For that.
Mhm.
But they're also going to kind of show us expenses and contributions and revenue over the last 10 years as part of their presentation. So you can kind of see where the fluctuations are. And I think that'll, generate some questions, but create a little better understanding of the cycle that they're in. And that's it.
Anything else? Well, wish everybody a Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, Happy
Same.
Hanukkah,
Same to
Happy
you.
whatever you celebrate,
Indeed.
and certainly Happy Holidays. And we'll see you in the new year.
Okay.
Have a healthy season.
I'm sure I'll see you before the.
Oh yeah. And I'll make
He's
a
gonna
motion.
make sure.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
I'll second that.
Okay.
Now, everybody's gonna.